Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition, a Halloween edition of Espresso Yourself, a spinoff of Morning Coffee Review. And that's why you've got three of us today. We're all going to have a nice, lovely conversation about all sorts of fun things. So before we get started, as always, got to check in with my buddy Michael, see how he's doing. It's looking a little dark and green over there, bud. How's it going?
It is. It's going good over here. It is cooler. We're down in the 50s at night, so I'm pretty excited about that. Just came back from a good old, I would call it holiday versus PTO. So I missed last week some introductions of what new releases were happening with Bluebeam. Jason did an amazing job. So check out that video if you want to look those updates. But excited to be back in the swing of things and bring on our buddy Kyle Lee. How you doing, Kyle?
Doing great this morning, guys. Thanks for having me on the Espresso Yourself. I really appreciate it. I feel like becoming a famous individual now, just like
Oh,
you
you
guys.
already are.
You
That's why we
already
call you
are.
Construction Kyle.
I don't know about that, but no, guys, I really do appreciate you inviting me to join today's session. Love to always sit down and talk. Talk shop, as you might say, discuss what's going on there in the industry and what's really affecting our clients and how they're going to market. So really looking forward to seeing what the session brings today. I'm not really sure what to expect.
Oh, well, I think I teased on the last episode that I might bring up ACC versus Bluebeam, and we'll see what happens because,
Oh,
these are all
okay.
things that
Yeah.
the industry's dealing with and using, and you're an expert in ACC. So we've been teasing the grudge match, and while we won't be sharing screens or getting too technical today, it might come up. It might come up. I'm just saying.
Okay.
So
Okay.
ACC, no, it's the accessory, like the first turn of the key when it clicks.
That's right. When
Oh,
your
wait,
radio
cars
comes
don't do
on.
that anymore. Cars don't have keys anymore. They just have the little,
You
I
know,
don't know.
someone was saying ABC the other day, and I always just thought they got it wrong because ACC, and then I finally realized it's
BIM
Autodesk
collaborate.
BIM Collaborate. It took me
Yeah.
forever. I'm like, I'm pretty sure every time I saw it, I always
Mhm.
was just thinking they spelt it just ABC versus ACC, not Autodesk BIM Collaborate. So that's
All
my
we need
bad.
is more acronyms.
I was going to say the acronyms. Man, I have more acronyms stuck in my head from my days with ATG than I could imagine. Just like I still have part numbers stuck in my head from all of my years in electrical distribution as well. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So on that note, you've maybe we should touch on first where you got your nickname from. For everyone that is listening in, his nickname here at ATG is Construction Kyle. So where did when do
So
you can you remember when that first came up?
I want to say that was probably about 4, maybe 5 years ago was whenever somebody first threw out Construction Kyle. It was a previous employee of ATG, but it's someone that I'd known for quite some time. Actually, went to college with this person and had a long relationship, and I always had different monikers. It's easy to run something together with Kyle, and so um, you know it's funny because back in college, I had a Corvette, so I was Corvette Kyle at that point. And
Mm.
then I was
Hmm.
whenever I transitioned more into to motorcycles, and it became Biker Kyle. And then as my beard grew out more, my good friend of mine's previous wife started calling me Biker Smurf. Not sure where that one came from. I guess
Okay.
from Papa
Okay.
Smurf. But yeah, all kinds of monikers. But no, the Construction Kyle thing really came probably, like I said, probably about 4 to 5 years ago. Really at that was the point in my tenure here with ATG where I really started to transition away from the dark side, the sales side of the organization. No, I say that jokingly, and you guys know that. But that's whenever I did start to transition more from a sales role within the organization into a primary focus around the Autodesk cloud hosted products and platforms. And, my experience with that became, started out with collaboration for Revit, BIM Collaborate Pro you were just mentioning. When collaboration for Revit first rolled out, I was still in a sales role, but I had a lot of my clients that were starting to adopt it, and myself and another one of our great technical people here in the organization, Jeff Landers. He and I really grabbed hold of that, and we started to find out very quickly that we needed to understand, the technical aspects of the platform in order to make sure that it was very stable for our clients, just as much as I needed to understand the value around what that offering could bring. So that's really when I started kind of transitioning more towards a technical based role. And then as Autodesk, began to evolve and really start to move beyond just a kind of a point product offering with collaboration for Revit more into a platform of the next generation BIM 360 platform. That's whenever I started to transition fully into the technical side of the organization and focus primarily on those different modules, those different products that were basically made to be the next generation BIM 360 platform and what has evolved into ACC, and not the Atlantic Coast Conference, but the Autodesk Construction Cloud unified platform, which is what I primarily spend my days, working in day out with our clients, is the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. Heavy focus on Autodesk Build.
Yeah, and so with that, basically it went from, and I didn't know about Team until now all the folks are asking about getting their projects out of Team. It went BIM 360 Team, BIM 360, and now ACC. Was there anything before BIM 360 Team?
No, there was not. BIM 360 Team was that first cloud location. I'm just going to call it a location. It wasn't a platform by any means, but it was a cloud location where you could, create a landing page for all teams to cloud host their Revit models. Okay, so again, we're getting away at that point. We were moving away from leveraging our internal server system, hosting that in the cloud, and giving our other project partners the ability to do the same thing, hosting their models there. We're able to link together with those live work in progress models and really see what's going on. I wouldn't say in 100% real time, but more so than what we were seeing in the ways that people were collaborating in the past with their Revit design, which was, hey, we work for a week and then we throw our updated version on a FTP site or on Dropbox. And then each team goes up and they download those respective models. And then they were having to go through and do a level of cleanup with those models before they wanted to actually host them to their server and link them in with their central model that was residing on the server there. So, that's BIM 360 Team. It was just that hosting location, but it was not a platform. But you're absolutely right, Michael. BIM 360 Team, then that evolved into what they called the next generation BIM 360 platform. And now we've moved into what they call the ACC, our Autodesk Construction Cloud unified platform.
And with BIM 360 Team, they are reaching their end of life for that.
Yes, very much so.
Do you have any feelers? Because I get asked this a lot too when I'm talking with clients. If we call it the tinfoil hat here, well, Jason does, kind of coined that name for stuff that Bluebeam does. But if you had a tinfoil hat, do you think they're going to do anything similar to BIM 360?
So right now, there's not any discussion around, bringing that next generation BIM 360 platform to end of life. Okay.
Tinfoil hat, Kyle. Tinfoil hat.
Tinfoil hat.
Well,
Again,
crystal
that's where
ball. Now we're getting crystal balls.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I want to give my kind of, here's my disclaimer. Right now, there is no conversation around that. Okay. But having been with ATG for 10 years, working, side by side with Autodesk for that time frame, my speculation here is that there will be an end of life that comes to that next generation BIM 360 platform. Time frame, guys, I'm hard pressed to speculate on that. Okay, it's not coming anytime in the very near future by any means. But the reality of it is that I don't see Autodesk continuing to support multiple platforms that essentially accomplish the same goal with, and also saying that this new unified platform really helps to accomplish that end-to-end goal better, in my personal opinion, than the next generation BIM 360 platform. But I can't see them continuing to invest the resources and the time and the money to keep that platform up and operational for the duration. Speculation on my point, and I've shared this with some clients on calls. If I had to guess, I'd say we might be 3 to 5 years. I could be off on that. We could be.
I was guessing 2 years.
We could be close to that 2 to 3 year mark, to be perfectly honest. I mean, right now, the reason I continue to kind of lean on that 3 to 5 year window is because, the big struggle is in moving that project data. Okay, moving that information from the older next generation BIM 360 platform into the new unified platform while retaining all of the important metadata that has been added in. It's great that we can, we want to be able to move our files over. That's important. But as people have really leveraged the platform more than just hosting their Revit models there, they've seen the value in leveraging things like their review and approval workflows, the issues, issue creation and issue tracking piece in there. They may also be leveraging, some of the field or project management functionality in there, like managing submittals or RFIs or punch lists or checklists, daily logs. So all of that metadata that comes along with that needs to be migrated over as well. That is kind of the missing link or the silver bullet that we're all looking for right now. And I think that
Because there's no button, right?
Right. There's no easy button for moving from one platform to the other. And that's why, Autodesk's suggestion for teams that may be leveraging BIM 360 now, but they want to move to the new unified platform, they've told them, look, pick a date to start creating all new projects in the new platform while continuing to work your existing projects out through completion on the older platform.
And they're not saying migrate the data over. They're saying
they
still
are not.
Keep it.
They are saying that is correct. That's the thing. Now, unless someone has just maybe in the past, say 2 to 3 days, started a new project on BIM 360 that they want to move over. Maybe in the very, very early stages of a project, we would have the ability to kind of put a pause on BIM 360 and reestablish an ACC. But once a project has gotten underway and people have really started to leverage some of those different platform-based workflows and tool sets that they have there, they definitely are saying, yeah, we want to work through completion on those projects rather than trying to migrate, because there's not a good method of migration right now, just to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, because I had a conversation with a client the other day, and go to the unified platform isn't pushing projects to the platform. There is no button built into BIM 360, and we're not talking about BIM 360 team. That's kind of just archived altogether, anyways, with the end of life.
Yeah.
But BIM 360, to migrate a project into ACC, there is no easy button. It's either download. You're going to lose that data of RFIs, submittals, revisions, PDFs. You download those, but downloading a project, right, and then moving it into the new platform, if you want to move a project from one to the other that is still active. There is some app that you can use to do it too, but it's like a trial period, or it's in its beta state.
So it's still in its early beta rollout. It's called the Autodesk Replication Tool. Now, in its current iteration, it is only set to be able to move over the project files that were in a BIM 360 project. So again, I can go in and I can tell it that I want to move, all of the files that are in this BIM 360 project and reestablish them here as a new ACC project. Now, we have to go ahead and create the ACC project and have it blank in order for the replication tool to see both. But there are still some kind of glitches or hiccups with that tool right now. Okay. First and foremost, again, we go back to what I mentioned earlier about, the retention of the metadata and all of the information associated with your project. In its current iteration, and my understanding is this is likely to change in the near future. I hear there's supposed to be some announcements around this tool at Autodesk University. So I'm excited to hear what they come down and say about it. But right now, if I move the files in my BIM 360 project over into a new ACC project, it only moves the most current version of the files over, and they begin with version number 1. So I'm not retaining any of the previous version data that has been contributed to my project along the way currently. I'm hoping that is something that is going to be changing. But again, it's only for the files. So again, if I've been leveraging the issues, if I've been leveraging review and approval workflows, that information is not able to be ported over through this Autodesk replication tool at this point. Okay. So that's, again, the bigger key here is, yes, I can get my files over, especially if all I need is just the most current version of them. I can get that over, but I'm losing the versioning, I'm losing any of the markups, I'm losing association to any issues that may have been associated with those different files there. So, that's why right now, again, it's we're still looking for that silver bullet that would allow us to do that and grab all of the project data and information, not just the files. I know the files are probably the heaviest of the lift when you get right down to space requirements and space being used. But again, I feel that the metadata is so much more important in this case that, that's where we've really got to have that piece in place before we look at being able to fully migrate from BIM 360 over to ACC. We have to have a tool that's going to be able to tap in and attach to and pull that metadata as well.
And be aware, Kyle's coming from that construction standpoint of submittal, reviews, RFIs, markups, where from my perspective, it would maybe be a firm that didn't use those, right? It'd be a great tool for the design teams that aren't leveraging the full capabilities, I guess you would say, of the ACC platform, because there are firms that are just doing work in place models and it's just a collaboration tool.
Yes.
That would be a great instance for those folks. There's not much metadata associated to it, but there's much more to the platform, especially with the newer platform, with model coordination. So that ability to do some clash detection, I call it light clash detection, more of like a lighter novice works type of scenario within the ACC platform, which you don't get in BIM 360 because the module is now activated in the newer ACC platform. Is that correct?
Well, so your BIM Collaborate, and BIM Collaborate Pro are the licenses that include the model coordination module that you're speaking to, Michael. And in all reality, your BIM Collaborate or BIM Collaborate Pro licenses can be used on either platform. So you can still leverage the model coordination module in the BIM 360 platform. Okay. Now, one thing that's nice is as they moved to the new unified platform and they rebranded as BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro, they actually did clients a big favor there. And some people may or may not have recognized that because previously you purchased BIM 360 Design, and that gave you the ability to cloud host your Revit models. Okay. It gave you access to Docs, or the document management module in BIM 360, which is your common data environment. That's your file repository. But then it also gave you access to what was called the design collaboration module, where teams had the ability to package up and go about collaborating with their project partners on their Revit design in just a little bit of a different manner. I'm not going to go into the details of that. But if you needed that model coordination module, it was a separate purchase. It was a separate license. It was BIM 360 Coordinate. Okay, so now you get access to Docs, design collaboration, and the model coordination module through either BIM Collaborate or the BIM Collaborate Pro licensing offering. The only difference between those two is the Pro version is the version you would need if you're connecting your Revit software and cloud hosting your Revit models into the cloud.
Yeah, and people always ask that because there are essentially 3 different licenses that are standalone, and that would be Docs, BIM, BIM Collaborate, and then BIM Collaborate Pro.
Correct.
And usually, well, I guess it's pretty simple. If you're good, the reason why you'd want Pro, which is the highest tier, most costly, is because you're working in a central model. So those are for your designers, right? Those folks that are working actively in model sharing. BIM Collaborate would be for more of maybe a PM role or a management role or some type of typically I say a PM role. What would be your perspective, or like a project architect?
My perspective on, so for somebody that might just use BIM Collaborate and not need the Pro version, that might be like your design coordinator. Okay, so somebody that's actually going in and they're not going through and actually working on the design itself, but maybe they're actually coordinating against or running that light clash detection against the other disciplines there. It could also be that you have a PM or a BIM manager for a project or a group of projects, and especially if they're leveraging the design collaboration module for those additional ways to collaborate, being able to share out packages. That may be one person's role over 3 to 4 projects is they're responsible for going in on the set day of the week and again making sure the publish has been successful to the web interface, and then packaging and sharing out their packages with the other project teams, and even possibly reviewing and consuming packages that have been shared by the other teams with them as well. So depending upon the size of the firm,
let's put a pin in that.
Okay.
Because you're saying consume packages, and Jason's laughing because basically a lot of folks that I've talked to, and I would say the vast majority of folks that work in the platform actually use and don't look at that model coordination. They activate it to do the work sharing, but they're not using it to the fullest extent that you have availability to. They're doing work in place. So can you explain?
Correct.
There's 3 different methods to
Yes.
collaborating within Revit in ACC and even BIM 360.
Sure.
What are those 3?
And so I do want to back up and just call out one thing here before we dive into it.
Okay.
You do not have to activate the design collaboration module in order to accomplish work sharing. Okay. If you're only going to be doing work in place collaboration, you don't have to activate that at all. And so work in place collaboration means that, we have hosted our cloud models and we've given the sufficient permissions to our other project partners, the other disciplines, to link into our work in progress model, and we're linking into their work in progress model. So with that, that means that anytime I open up my model, I see the latest version of my team's model based on whomever it was on the team that hit sync to central last. And I'm also getting the most up-to-date version of my project partner models that are linked into mine based on whomever on their team has hit sync to central last. So again, it's not real time. I don't see things moving in my model based upon what other people are doing in theirs. But in order to get the latest version of any of my team's model or any of the other teams, all I have to do is hit sync to central and reload latest from the collaborate tab. And that will pull in changes from my team as well as changes from the other project partner team. So that's the work in place. Now, when we get into the design collaboration module, the main reason that most people activate it, even if they're only going to pursue work in place collaboration, they actually will activate it just simply so that they can have a scheduled weekly publish.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. So got tons of clients that I've worked with for years that is the only reason that they activate the design collaboration module, is so that every single team can have a scheduled publish time so that they know they're getting newer versions publishing out to the web interface.
Because otherwise it's manual, and you could do it from docs. You could do it if you design collaboration is enabled, you can do it from there. And then you can also do it within Revit. However, within 2023 and 2024, they took it out of the collaboration tab, and you have to do it from the home tab for those folks that are within Revit to publish.
That is correct. And just a little bit of a horror story here from a client of mine, architectural client. They had been working in BIM 360, because this has been a few years back. They were all doing work in progress. So they were working in Revit, okay, but they were not publishing to the web interface. Okay. And so they go out to meet with the owner, and this particular architect, he says, you know what? Hey guys, we're just going to take our iPad. We're going to take, or actually they took a Surface Pro with them, was what hey, we're going to connect to the internet, and we're just going to pull it up on the web, but we'll just do it through the web interface. Why not? They hadn't been publishing. So they get to the client's office, and they're looking at the very first version of their model that they had when they initially had set up and started the cloud work sharing. And so he calls me in a panic, and he says, man, Kyle, our model, when I look at it on the web interface, it looks like when we first started, it looks like no work has been done. And I said, well, Greg, when was the last time you published from Revit out to the web interface? And he went, oh my gosh, man, you've told me that so many times I can't count. And that's exactly what I forgot to do here. Okay.
Yeah, because that's how it's version controlling.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
For what you're seeing on the web. So that's the key, is that for somebody that's working inside of the Revit software, BIM Collaborate Pro, they're always going to see the most up-to-date version if we're doing the work in progress linking. Okay. They always will. But what we see on the web interface is surely controlled by when we elect to publish. Okay. And that's going to be the case with any of these different collaboration methods that we're going to talk about here. And so, now, sorry, we got into a little bit of a side story here, but, now talking about the other two types of collaboration that can be leveraged, and these two types of collaboration, they fully rely upon the design collaboration module to complete. Okay, so when you activate the design collaboration module, regardless of if we're going to be using it in the way it's intended or not, it creates a couple of folders in your folder structure in the docs area. Okay, it's going to create a shared folder. And inside of that shared folder, you'll have subfolders for every one of the different design teams. And then in the design teams folder where their working model is hosted to, inside of there, they're going to see a consumed folder. And that all plays into the 2 levels of collaboration that are available by using the design collaboration module. And looking at some of the chats here, Beth pointed this out. Seems like the MEP teams typically prefer the controlled sharing in most cases, and I would agree with that. And I can even give some examples. But again, if we're using that, what that means is that we are setting up amongst the team a designated day of the week when we are going to publish our models. That's why we use the automatic publishing, have it set to publish in the middle of the night. So then I'm going to come in, let's say on Tuesday morning, just like today. Every Tuesday morning, I come in, I verify that my publish has completed. I go to the design collaboration module and I create a package with the latest version of our file. So then when I create that package and share that package, that automatically throws that latest version of my Revit model, a copy of it, into the shared folder. Okay.
And you have to hit publish on that.
You have to publish. Well, you have to publish your model in order to make sure when you create the package, the Revit model that you're capturing is the most up-to-date version. Now, it's very easy to tell that because it always tells you what version you're capturing for the package, and it will also tell you the date and time whenever it was published. But we go in and we do that, and we create our package and we share our package. Now, again, if we go into, so let's say the architectural team had just done that and they've shared their package. If they go into the shared folder and then into the architectural subfolder, they'll see that latest version of that Revit model they had just shared. And so in that scenario, some teams may say, we want to use the design collaboration module. We want to issue packages so that we can track that on the project timeline. Okay, just more of, it's just kind of a checks and balances type of a thing.
I would come at it from the angle of, I don't want to see every update that the architectural team is doing from a design standpoint, right?
Correct.
So from the structural side, two things. Architectural teams, be aware if you're doing the live link in place, high trust, because you're pretty much giving access to your folder structure so that they can link into your model. If you're doing the shared method, which Kyle was just talking about, is more of a medium trust because you can give them access to that location. Into those folders. But the great thing about that is we're seeing when the architectural team or whatever sub-consultants decide to hit that publish setting, right? Then there's one more, which I think is the best one, in my opinion. But that's just because you get to decide when your team gets the update. But that's just my opinion. That's how I would prefer to work. So I'm not seeing every update and our team's deciding, but I'll let Kyle get into it. So
yeah. And so, one of the things here, so some teams say, and you just mentioned it here, Michael, if we're going to use the work in progress linking, we're giving teams a view and download access into our working folder. Okay. And some teams may not want to do that. They may say, hey, you know what? Nobody's coming into this folder except for our team. There may be other things that you're storing in that folder outside of your Revit models that you don't want other teams to have access to. So in that case, if the intention here is, hey, I just want to get the updates whenever they're made available, then that's where we can go in, and after a team has created and shared a package and it shows up in that shared folder, if the team's not worried about reviewing the updates before they link them into their model, they can link to the model in the shared folder. Okay. Now, what happens there is now next week when that team publishes, goes in and creates a new package and shares that package, my linked model will automatically update based on that new package and the new version of their model. That's a scenario where, again, we don't want people having access into our working folders, but we also don't want to have to really think about or worry about going in and reviewing the design changes in order to link them into our model. Okay, but that is where you get the most control, and that's the third and final method there, which is what we call consumed collaboration. Okay,
and that's your team deciding to consume that package, and that's
exactly right.
Yeah, and that's a benefit because, and again, my opinion, and you take it as it is, but basically because the second one, it is the team is still being able to decide. So let's say the coordination team that I'm coordinating with, they publish it and push that package out to the shared folder. they're still in that deciding factor, right? They get to decide. Where consumed, your team decides when your team receives that updated link to that file path of the consumed folder. And then also, right, you're giving people different access rights within the project. And that was going to be a question because I don't know the answer to this, Kyle. A client asked, can I give somebody a project admin so they can invite their own team members into the ACC project, but give them different access rights so they can't see into every folder in the project?
Unfortunately, there's not a way to, if somebody's a project admin, they're a project admin and they have the keys to the kingdom at the project level. Okay. So unfortunately, there's not a way to do that. Okay. Now, within a single folder, you can give someone what's called manage permission. So that would give that person or those individuals with manage permission into a folder the ability to manage other people's permissions into that folder. It would also give them the ability to create subfolders within that folder and also to create custom attributes
Could they
that would
invite
apply
people
to
into the project?
They would not be able to invite people into the project. That is a project administration functionality wholly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's I
It's
understand
kind
where
of a
they're
miss
coming
the
from.
mark. Yeah. I get it too, but like miss the mark of I want to not have to receive 10 emails of what team members I need to invite and be aware of, I don't know, team turnover maybe at a firm, right? Or new hires or stuff like that, where I'm getting pinged. Like majority of times right now, architectural teams are leading the charge of the hub, right? And inviting sub consultants into the hub and their hub. And you're the one inviting them if you don't give project admin access to an individual at that firm. So
Correct. So I mean, again, if somebody's already if somebody's already on a project, and I see that Beth, and I'm not sure if I'm following the same way that Beth was mentioned there, said that you used to be able to add users to their folder. So again, if somebody has that manage permission into their team's work in progress folder, they can add other people with a permission into their folder or subfolders that that person has created, but it does not give them the ability to add users to the project as a whole there, unfortunately. So but yeah, the thing about using the consumed method, I understand somebody put in there, it turns into an expensive FTP site. Alex made that comment there. If you're just using it at its base level, yes, it
yeah.
could appear that way. I
Yep.
definitely understand that. Now, the other thing though is that along with that whole aspect of going in, I think the bigger key there is being able to go in and actually review a package prior to consuming. Okay. And so being able to go in and see the model that has been exchanged, compare it with the model that you
I
currently
think,
have,
yeah, I think
it's
compares a
linked in.
huge
It is.
like, so yeah. So to Alex's no, I can't see the chat. Jason knows, so hopefully he's monitoring. But basically, right, if you're using it like a glorified FTP site, then you're not using to its full extent capabilities. I love doing the model compare, especially coming from a structural background. If I was receiving an architectural update and I wasn't made aware of everything that changed, that compare feature of the version, it's not the sync, it's the version, which Kyle talked about earlier, the publish. You can compare visually and get an itemized list of things that were modified, deleted, or added. Those are the three, yeah.
Yeah.
Into it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the starting point, right? Because there's a lot of other things you can do. I will say right now, their markups are not the best.
Nope.
You can still
I'll
mark
agree with
up in Bluebeam through into ACC platform, but again, there's that kind of cautionary period because Kyle and I tested this because I prefer Bluebeam markups all day, and I'll let Kyle make his own opinion on that. But you can mark up. You just have to worry about that version because it creates a new version of the PDF when you're marking up. So you're all aware of that.
Yeah. And so, I see some of the comments that are coming in here, and I totally get it. And David, how often do you ever see a firm that uses a software to its limits? You're right about that in many cases. And one of them said, Alex mentioned that, it's great in theory, but in reality, we just consume it and deal with the changes, via email or going through Bluebeam Studio sessions, et cetera. In a scenario like that, if you're just going to consume it without going in and reviewing, then why not just link to the shared folder?
Yeah.
I mean, that way it keeps you from having to go in and even hit the consume button in order to get that linked model in. Okay. Again, I understand why some disciplines do want to leverage consume, because they want to go in and they want to see exactly what has changed related to those other teams' models before they think about bringing them in. And in that case, there are going to be instances where the changes might be so minor in the perspective of another team that, hey, you know what, there's really no point in us consuming this. It's not a major change. It's really impacting what we're going to be doing here. But the other side of that, and somebody else I saw briefly in some of the comments, it had called out, with the work in progress, and I've actually heard about this happening before, is, there's not always the best level of communication. Not that ever happens to anybody on their projects, but
Never. There's always clear communication from every team.
From every single
siloed.
team.
We're not
That's
siloed.
right. That's right. But somebody, so let's say the architectural team, they're looking at some design options in a specific area of the building or in a couple of different offices in a building, but they don't relay that to the wider project team. And so again, I hear this with MEP teams, more so than anybody else, is I see these changes that are happening from the architect. So we go in and we start responding. We're actually moving around receptacles. We're moving around the light fixtures because the ceiling, the reflective ceiling plan has changed, et cetera. And then come to find out, either at the end of the day or maybe a day and a half or so later, we go back in and none of that's there anymore. And so I've just spent a day working on something that was throwaway, essentially. And so, communication is always key. I'll tell you, I was not a fan of the design collaboration module when it first rolled out. But I think the reason for that was because I had been working traditionally with more architects at that point than different consulting firms and different project partners around the engineering trades, and disciplines there.
And that's kind of that glorified FTP site where you're just
Yes.
working with your internal team. You're not collaborating with external teams. And that's really where the benefit is. And if you go and look in Google, because you can work in a central model in Dropbox. Like, let's be clear and concise of that, because I know that's always a big elephant in the room. However, there's been many cases where I've talked with clients and they've come to us, especially on our support side, where corruption has happened, right? It's not vetted by Autodesk. They say that there's corruption issues, and that's true, there are. And maybe you're the one-off firm where it hasn't happened yet, but I would never want to be on a large project where I lose all of or have to backtrack to where I was at.
So, another good thing.
Yet
being the keyword.
Yet being the keyword. That's right. Well, and another good feature that they've rolled out in some of the more recent versions of Revit, I think this started in 2022. I don't think it was in 2021, but previously we could go in through the managed cloud models and we could see every time that somebody had hit sync to central versus publishing what was on the website. We had to be in the Revit software to do this. But the key with that, so let's say we did have corruption, or we did have something catastrophic happen, we could step back to a previous sync version. But when we did, we lost any of the other synchronizations to central beyond that point. We had no ability to, possibly download one of those to open it and see, was this one working properly or not? You were just kind of blindly stepping back.
Yep.
Now, in the newer versions, we can actually go in, we can see the sync to central history, and we can also open those previous versions up. And so they open up almost like a detached version of a central model. So let's say somebody says, hey, this piece of equipment that I modeled in here the other day, I come in, I put that in there Thursday, and I come in on Tuesday and open my model up and it's not there. Where did it go? Who moved it? Rather than having to step it back, what they can do is they can open up their cloud model and then also go in through the home screen and open up the previously synced model and find the version they were working on where they knew it was in there. They can copy it from that one, paste it into the cloud model, and resynchronize to central, and they've restored that without having to manually step back through their synced versions and possibly lose any valuable work that had taken place since then.
Yeah, I'll say that they've been coming a long way more rapidly, I would say, and updates in the ACC platform, especially with Bridge coming through.
Yes.
The ability to work with, folks like Jason in the cloud now. You have civil projects being able to be hosted, DWGs, everything essentially being able to be hosted in that platform and work appropriately, right? In terms of Civil 3D and using the sheet set manager. I think I said that
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Yes.
Nicely done.
Look at that. I learned. So that ability to collaborate with all team members now, I think is the we've all been waiting, I would say, for that iteration in it to be fully embraced. And I think this is where the industry is going in terms of collaboration and coordination, because at some point, right, then you don't have to create a whole new platform to build the project, right? Because you are essentially going from design to build. There's no need to turn over, because then you just invite construction Kyle over here, which is funny because you come from electrical background, but you have, the construction in your name. But the building part, so this constructability part, is you're enabling the build module, right? Or is it
Exactly.
do you classify it is a module if you think
Yes.
of the hierarchy,
Yeah.
but it's a different license for sure.
It is a different license. Yes. I look at every one of the off. So if you're in ACC and you click on the top left corner, if it's in docs, you get your drop down. All of those are separate modules. Docs is a module, design collaboration, model coordination, build, takeoff, cost management, insight. I do consider all of those modules, but within those modules, each module has different tool sets that are available within them as well. That's kind of how I typically try to classify it, is the module and then the tool sets within that module. And I know, and everybody on this call, I know they understand this. They've been, we've got a plethora of people that have been with the industry for a while. We just got to love the way that Autodesk changes the name of the licensing and changes the way that they package the licensing as well,
it's
because,
typical. So
yeah, because that can be a little bit confusing sometimes. Yeah, I know, Beth. Is the fact that you say build, but build includes docs, build, cost management, and then if you're an administrator, possibly account admin, project admin, insights. So it's hard to say. You need. Sometimes it's hard for people as you're describing this to them. It's easy for me because it's what I do every day. But if this isn't the world that people live their daily life in, they go, well, now, Kyle, how does this work? I just need to be able to use the model coordination piece in there. Okay. My next question is always, do you need to be able to access the Revit design models that are hosted there as well? Okay, so now we know whether we need BIM Collaborate versus BIM Collaborate Pro. It's usually not a straightforward, I need one module. Can you sell me a license just for that module? The only module that's available that can be sold separately, but it's also included in the AEC collections, is Docs. That's the only module that is just a single module. All the other licensing actually is tied back to multiple modules within the platform.
And take note of that. It is included in your AEC collection, but it's just
Yes.
docs. You cannot, you can cloud host a Revit model, but not a central file. So you can do save to cloud in docs, but you can't host a central file, which would be live collaboration.
Right.
Or like Kyle said earlier, live collaboration syncing would be the not instantaneous, right, part. So you have to sync in order to see the updates, but just like you would on a on-prem type of file location too. So
absolutely. No, and I agree. Alex Smith put it in there, and he said it better than I could. Generally, they change the name just about the time that you start to get it figured out. Yep. Always seems to be the case. So yeah, they're trying to keep everybody on their toes, Beth. You're absolutely right there. So that's that's one thing though, that's where you can rely on people like us here at ATG. Okay. We live our day in, day out here and in this realm. You guys are dealing with a multitude of different products, platforms, technologies, requirements that are coming in from your clients, from your upper level, your executive leadership team. Don't worry about having to keep up with all of that stuff. That's why you have people like us on your side to help to clarify that when it's an important topic on your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hesitate to reach out and leverage us for that, rather than trying to take that burden on yourself, which usually causes a lot of confusion in most cases.
Yeah. And make sure you find folks that are advantageous for you as well, right? In terms of who we are here at A2G, we won't recommend or sell you something that you don't need. So I think that's a big kicker with this, since it is so confusing, because there's a lot of stuff. Some are included in your AEC collection, right? Do I need a BIM Collaborate Pro? Why do we need build? Those types of things, right? They're all associated to a dollar amount. And getting the right thing that's not overselling you on a product that you don't need and that's not going to benefit your workflow is, having that. I think of Toy Story, having that friend in me. But yeah, having someone that's able to talk you through it, right? That's what we do here at ATGs. You see it through MCR. We're always here to talk about and open. Now, with our time left, I keep looking at the time because I want to do a comparison, because now we talked about build. So we've kind of, paintbrushed through most everything. So you enabled build. Now there's this thing called PlanGrid. Autodesk went and purchased and bought out PlanGrid. And that's where we would compare, I would say, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Arlie, the cloud app that Bluebeam has now would be more, because it used to be BIM 360 Field, looks night and day similar to cloud, right? In my opinion.
Bluebeam Cloud.
Yes, yeah. Bluebeam Cloud, sorry. And that's my opinion. Take it as you may. Now, where did Field go from Autodesk platform and now PlanGrid's iteration? Like, fill in those gaps, and then we'll compare. Just be mindful of the time, Kyle.
Yeah.
For the cloud app, like where does cloud compare in that portion? Because that's where it would be comparable.
Sure. So, just kind of where we're at now, and I'm glad you brought this up, because really where we're at with the Autodesk Construction Cloud Unified Platform, just in its simplest of simple terms, it was taking the PlanGrid acquisition, and PlanGrid was a platform that was already heavily used and widely touted as being one of the most mobile friendly project management and field management platforms that were out there. Okay. So it was taking that purchase and acquisition of PlanGrid and what they already had there, and basically taking the backbone of PlanGrid and merging in the key features and functionalities of the BIM 360 platform to pull the best of those worlds together when you get right down to it. Okay. Yes, BIM 360 Field, it was out there, but I'll tell you, I think part of it was because there wasn't as high of a level of adoption around the BIM 360 Field, simply because it had BIM in the name. Okay. I hate to say it, but let's call out the elephant in the room. Let's just do it, guys. GCs and subcontractors, BIM is a 4-letter word to them. Okay. I had a mechanical subcontractor that I knew, and he said, if I see that there are BIM requirements in the project, he said, my price went up 30%. I don't care what my price was. I'm not even digging into it. He said, it's 30% higher than if you just let me go build it myself.
Wild.
Okay. So I think that was a big part of it. So pulling, now, but really the benefit of the BIM 360 platform was the ability to leverage all of these different file types. That was a huge piece, especially over PlanGrid and over most other project management and field management platforms. We need access to more than just PDFs. Okay. So now having the ability to leverage, yes, I can still leverage my PDFs, but also being able to leverage my 3D models, whether they're NWDs or NWCs, Revit models, also having access to Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, photos,
and
all
not
of those
upload things to it, right? That's the other benefit, right? In terms of if you were using cloud, Bluebeam's application, you have to manually upload those PDFs. Whereas ACC, you're already working in it from a design team if you are. And I could pull up the app in the field and do issue tracking. I pulled it up the other day on my phone. It's a pretty slick app, and it was the first time I've downloaded it since I've been using it. And you can pull up the model, you can do issue tracking, but going back into it so we can do a comparison. Sorry.
Yeah, and also, when it comes to the mobile app, really the Autodesk just kept the existing PlanGrid mobile app. Okay.
So that's what that is built off of. That
is exactly
Cloud app. Wow.
That, again, PlanGrid came as, one of the most widely touted platforms for ease of use from a mobile perspective out in the field.
So do you have to have PlanGrid to download the ACC app?
No, you do not. You can if you're just using docs, if you just have Docs access, or if you have BIM Collaborate Pro, you can download and leverage the ACC mobile app. Now, the level of functionality and the tools that you'll see in there will be limited in comparison to, say, someone that has Autodesk Build, because they're going to be the people that have access to the published construction document sheets, to be able to, see the RFIs and submittals, being able to go in and see assets that have been set up within the project, things of that nature, all within the mobile app there. But it's really nice because a lot of people were using PlanGrid, and so PlanGrid and BIM 360 are both in that same boat around, they both reside in their own platform, and there's no easy way to migrate into the new ACC unified platform. But I can go into my ACC mobile app, and at the top, I've got a tab that says Build, and I've got a tab that says PlanGrid.
Yep.
So doesn't matter which platform my team is using, whether it's one or the other or a combination of both, one app to get to all of my projects.
Yeah, and that's that thing, like in the comparison to Bluebeam Cloud, it's working off portable document formats. So it's a great application that's included in your license, don't get me wrong, that is working off PDFs. If you're a
Correct.
design team working in ACC, and I'll tell this to you every day if we're on the call, if you're already in that platform, leverage the platform, right? But if you're thinking about doing PlanGrid and some costs, and you're just working off PDFs within the PlanGrid environment, right, there may not be a need to purchase PlanGrid when you have Bluebeam Cloud at your disposal, right? So just thinking of cost savings of where you're at,
Sure.
that's kind of where I would come from. If you're already in the platform, and when I talk to clients, if you're in ACC, then start using the full capabilities of ACC, right? There's no need to push sets back into Bluebeam and have a whole different workflow, because we all know human error. And then updates and downloads, remove that. You can use the ACC platform, use it to its full extent. But if you're trying to have something out in the field, that's when Bluebeam would shine in terms of PDFs, and it's completely separate already. Then use that platform, because it does have some great iterations to it. Again, as we all seen and have heard, Bluebeam's putting more effort into the development of that app. But if you're looking at the ACC app and then you're already having PlanGrid, stay in that vein, right? I would say.
Yeah. And there was one that came in here just a moment ago, as long as you guys are okay with it. I know we've got 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Alex Smith had mentioned, you really need a build license to really tap into PlanGrid. Well, the functionality that's within PlanGrid, you're absolutely right. Really, I look at, and you can kind of compare build to plan. You can say build is PlanGrid 2.0, just additional functionality that's in there. Everything that was in PlanGrid plus some more. Now he asks also, can you speak to Autodesk Build's licensing? Primarily that every user needs to purchase a license versus Procore, where the GC does the purchasing. Do you see GCs buying bulk licenses for all of their subs and their design teams too? Now, so Autodesk Build can be purchased as individual user-based licenses. Yes, it can. It is purchased in the exact same way that PlanGrid was purchased. So they had nail gun, dozer, and crane. That was the equivalent to the number of published construction documents across all your projects. Okay, 555,000 are unlimited. Okay, so that's exactly how Build is sold.
PDFs for those folks that are
your public your published construction documents, not your files. Keep that in mind. Now, Autodesk does offer what they call account-based licensing for Autodesk Build. So that is that, kind of the GC level purchasing option, like you mentioned with Procore there, Alex. Yes, Autodesk does offer that. So, a GC or even I've had some subcontracting firms that the price for them to purchase account-based was within $1,000 or maybe even, $1,500 to $2,000 of the number of individual licenses that they needed. So they said we could pay $2,000 more and have access to unlimited licenses. And yes, you can give that out to all your project partners. There's no limit to who you give it to, the number of licenses that you're using across all of your projects, and all of those licenses are for unlimited sheet count licenses. Okay. Now, keep in mind that's just for the Autodesk Build module, or for the Build licensing, which is Build cost management and docs. So, from the design team perspective, yes, they could issue out a Build license for, say, your project architects that are going to continue along with the project once design has completed. But now this is not the same as your BIM Collaborate Pro licensing that would be needed to attach your Revit software to the cloud for your cloud hosting there. So I do see that where some people within a design firm may have both licenses, but your primary design staff would typically only be using the BIM Collaborate Pro licensing. They're not typically responsible for going out on site, doing observations or things of that nature. But yes, there is that licensing model available.
Yeah. So with that note, in terms of Procore, would you say, are they comparative? Would you be purchasing both or one or the other, build versus Procore?
Well, now build versus Procore, that's two totally different things here. We were just talking about within the same platform. Now, I mean,
okay.
build and Procore are competitive platforms when you get right down to it. Okay. Procore, I'll give Procore credit where credit is due. You know, they hit the market and beat Autodesk to market with a really good project and field management platform and solution, and they beat Autodesk to market by about 3.5 to 4 years, maybe even closer to 5. Okay. So they did a great job of you know, getting in there and getting a good portion of the market share right off the bat, because that was just a blank space at that point. Okay. So we do compete directly with Procore. So what I've seen is, you know, typically you may have instances where the key is you want to retain your team's data for the project, regardless of what you're being required to use by your other project partners. Okay. That's the beauty of Bridge. If everybody's using the new unified platform, I can actually take what we're doing within our project on our site and push it to the GC site for the GC's use and downstream use there, but we're still retaining that data. So I have seen instances where people may be required to use Procore by a GC, but they elect to still manage these processes within the Construction Cloud Unified Platform and export reports that they can then either email back in, or if they've been given a license, they can go into the Procore platform and upload that data. But again, the key there is making sure that I can retain that data and have access to that information beyond the project itself. Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's becoming more of a wave because Autodesk has a hold on the design teams, right, of go-to-market strategy versus where Procore is the GC side. And 5 years is not that long, I would say, from our industry perspective, how long it takes to adopt technology. But they do have a larger hold, I would say, on that market. But I think the transition would be not having to transition to another software, right? If the design team's primarily using Autodesk design software to design their projects, they're leveraging that platform. It may be easier to just activate from a construction standpoint within build.
And you know, one thing about Procore as well, I'm not as familiar because I've never used it in the real world, but I know that like if you do go with account-based Autodesk Build licensing, so your price is what the price is up front for the duration of that contract period. Okay. So where a lot of people are pulling back from Procore is Procore said, okay, this is your price for 3 years. But what they didn't tell them was, or it was in some of the fine print that some of them didn't catch, is they will
You read
come
the
in
fine print?
I don't, but I've heard the horror stories from some of our
Jason,
clients
do
that
you
have
read the
found
fine print?
You know, it's getting more and more sneaky these days.
Yes.
So I'm starting to do it.
Procore will come back in and do a true up with you. So they will look. So whenever you purchase account based, it's basically set around a set number of licenses and usage. Okay. So yes, you could continue to give it out to everyone that you want to, but they're going to come back in and they're going to compare what your actual usage is against what your anticipated usage was when the contract was put in place. And then if it was above that,
and gals. Wow.
So and Procore, you're right. Procore's pricing is based on the company's revenue. Now they do look at that as well from the Autodesk perspective, but I can tell you that from some of these conversations I've been having with some clients, we're starting to have a lot of conversations with clients that are wanting to come to us from Procore because of either the true up scenario where they have been hit mid-year or mid-contract for these true ups above what the initial estimate was. But then also when they come back in to renew that contract for a new term, it's much higher than it was with the original contract purchase.
So now that
they have you hooked at that point.
Yeah, I was just saying,
they think they do.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I mean, well, it always comes down to cost at the end of the day, right? I mean,
Sure,
when
certainly.
we're looking at a cost of a design project, right? And I think that's probably where it was in its infancy stage, Procore being more cost effective, right? As it's being a go-to-market strategy. Now it's, hey, we've hooked you. Let's start getting our generator revenue from it. And then that's where people are coming to you, right, Kyle, in terms of what are our
That's
other
exactly right.
options? Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we're starting to have a lot of those conversation as a lot of these Procore contracts, or these 3-year contracts, are coming up for renewal times, because now Procore has come back to them and said, okay, to continue to do this, here's your cost. And that cost is significantly higher than the original buy-in. And even though the, in many cases, it's not that it directly correlates to an increase in the company revenues.
Wow.
Okay. So that's where we're starting to see a lot of people come back and really starting to show interest in build, and really heavily, evaluating it, and not just evaluating it because they're looking for a platform. They're looking at, we've already been pulled into this once. We want to make sure if we move forward, we're not going to find ourselves in a similar position again with almost a bait and switch. Not quite, but
yeah. So
it kind of feels that way.
Can people contact us here at ATG, I guess, that are listening in, because this will be on Spotify, you, Kyle, and get an objective view? Is that something that ATG does if they've never talked to anyone here? Just to have a conversation, right? Versus that bait and switch, like you're saying.
100%. That's exactly what we're here for at ATG. I would suggest at first, try to reach, if you know who your account executive here is with ATG, please reach out to them first. Okay. Otherwise, yeah, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Michael, reach out to Jason. They all know my email address to forward stuff my way as well. And heck, you know what? I'm going to put mine right here in the chat. I may be unleashing the
you
beast.
Are definitely unleashing the beast. Let me just say that, but
that's okay. That is okay.
Do not read it out loud, because this will be on YouTube.
That's right. That's
Spotify.
right.
You can contact us here at ATG. Carrie's not here. I was going to say, what's ATG's email address?
There we go. Well, this has been a great conversation, Kyle. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for getting into the weeds about Procore versus ACC versus BIM 360 versus Bluebeam Cloud versus a whole bunch of things. Sounds like there's a lot more that we can talk about, and maybe we'll have to continue this conversation very soon. But in the meantime, that's all the time we got for today.
Yep.
Happy Halloween, everybody. We will see you next week. Don't forget to set your clocks back come Sunday night. So Michael will be here.
I'm so
excited. An extra hour of sleep.
So excited.
We'll go from there.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. If you do want us to have an actual showdown, maybe we'll have Kyle not on an Espresso herself, but an actual MCR, and maybe we can bring up Plan Grid and build and kind of show the differences between cloud. If that's something you're interested in, put it in the comments. Till then, see you all next time. Thanks again, Kyle. Much appreciated. And thanks for joining. Good seeing you again, Arlie. Bye.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.